Hello.
Hello. We are doing a little off-the-cuff podcast, aren't we? This is something that we're doing right now.
It appears to be, yes, that's what's happening, and we're talking, so yeah.
This is unplanned. Hello, listeners. My name's Peter Willington, and I'm one of the hosts here at InRetroSpectPodcast.com, and I'm joined today by Mr. Daniel Frost, fellow conspirator, man about town.
I am indeed here, not about town this evening, because I've joined you to have a little talk.
Have a little talk. Now, what talk is this going to be? Is it going to be a chat about how I shouldn't put my finger there anymore? Is it going to be a chat about how my habit has become too much? No, it's not.
We've already had those conversations.
We've had those conversations and I've ignored them. We're talking about the Xbox One, which has just been unveiled.
It still sounds a bit strange, doesn't it?
Yeah. So this is the Xbox One, Xbox O-N-E, and not the Xbox One as in the original Xbox.
No.
Although the controller does look a little bit like an original Xbox controller. I suppose we should start at the top. So today's the 21st of May, and the Xbox One has been revealed by Microsoft. It is going to be the successor to the Xbox 360, as we all thought it would be. And it is their next generation machine. It's also extremely not focused on games. So it's so I suppose one of the we'll sort of talk about some of the features now. The Xbox presentation kind of kicked off with a reveal of the box itself and the controller and the sort of Kinect-like bar that's going to be coming with every system. First impressions, Dan.
Well, I've when you look at this launch, you've got to compare it with the PS4 launch. You have to compare it because they're coming out at the same time and they are pretty much the same kind of console. If you look at the specifications of it, it's basically the same thing, more or less.
Yeah, that's right.
At that level, there's not much difference towards them. Mm. You look at the box of it, and there doesn't appear to be much difference in that either. The look of it, but I think you can't. It's very difficult to compare these because they both came at it at a completely different angle and tried to hit two completely different audiences. Whereas PS4 and Sony, they really, really tried to hammer home the gamer audience and pretty much leave everyone else out. Microsoft tended instead to really broadly across the audience try and hit every single one at least a little bit, and so they didn't really focus on anyone in particular, which I'm not surprised about. That's what I anticipated them doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they're going to be hitting them with the Xbox One physically, then they'll be leaving a rather large dent in their head. The actual Xbox itself is designed like a very I would say like a late 90s desktop PC, like a flat, the kind of PC that you'd have the screen sitting on top of. It's got a disk drive. It's a Blu-ray player. It has more than likely got a hard drive in it. I forget the actual specifications of that hard drive at the moment, but it's in the hundreds of gigabytes.
I think it's what I've seen. I think is 500 gig.
500 gig. Yep, you're completely right. It's got built-in Wi-Fi, 8-core CPU, USB 3.0, native 64-bit architecture, 8 gigs of RAM. One of the really interesting things to me in just the design of the box itself was they showed the controller. It looks very much like the 360 controller, so that's really good because that controller is excellent. They showed the Kinect device that sort of came with it as well, that will be coming with it as well, and that looks again a lot like a Kinect. It's all in black, but the box itself is very unassuming. It's a stylish looking little bit of kit, but it looks like it's quite large as well. Which is
do you think the reason it's large is because it then allows them to slim it down?
I think. Do you know, Dad? I think you might be onto something here. So I mean, obviously, naming difficulties aside, Xbox One and then there potentially being two of them at some point, and the fact that it's the third, their numbers are confused. Let's forget about numbers. Yes, I mean, it is a large device, but it's also quite unassuming. I think it's quite a handsome looking bit of kit. So there's that. Then the presentation kind of moved on to television, and this was the really big focus.
One other thing I just wanted to mention, just
Sure.
in terms of the presentation, how it looks. Yesterday, unsurprisingly, Sony decided to release a teaser teasing how the PS4 was going to look. I have no reason to think that they had anything to do with the little launch that was going on today.
No.
I made them release it yesterday.
Sure.
But it's quite strange that it appears to look very similar to the Xbox, which is quite funny considering they were trying to kind of get a step up on Microsoft, and then Microsoft come out and pretty much almost show off what Sony were teasing.
Yeah.
I found that quite funny because basically from the tease that you see, it looks as if the PlayStation 4 will be large square black box, and the Xbox is a large square black box.
But as I say, like personally for me, that's completely fine. You're very rarely looking at your actual Xbox, and for me, like the more sort of subtle it is, the more away it is. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But as long as it's sitting underneath the TV and it looks decent enough, that's fine. But TV is really important, and I think TV is actually core to what Microsoft are pushing at the moment. There was a lot of chat about, you'd be able to watch television instantly. All of your TV would be streaming, coming through the Xbox One. There would be functionality additional functionality with your television if you did watch it on the Xbox One. For example, a snap mode, which allows you to bring in different elements of the interface. So there's going to be really good Skype, which will allow for high definition Skype chat calling while you're watching television. Should that be a thing that you want to do. There's also the ability to bring up an Internet Explorer window at the same time. So if you want to quickly search for you're watching a film and you want to search for an actor by name, then go for it. They also showed an example of fantasy sports where you would be notified whilst you're watching the NBA or something like that your fantasy team player had just scored a basket or a hoop or whatever it's called, and that looked really interesting. The problem for me was that they focused on that for about 25 minutes, and it was an hour-long presentation.
Yeah, and I've actually been left a little bit confused as to what am I actually getting. Is this basically like a subscription service for that, or am I going to get? I mean, because obviously it's heavily put towards the US audience. This launch was, so all the stuff was for the US audience. For us in the UK, does that mean will I get like your basic Freeview channels? Is that going to come through my Xbox now? Is that going to replace, if I've got a Sky or a Virgin box, is that going to try and replace that in some kind of way?
And for me,
I'm not quite clear.
For me, one of the questions I have actually is, I'm somebody who doesn't have a TV license because I don't watch television. Now, if television is so crucial to the Xbox One experience, does that mean that I now have to go and get a television license because it simply won't work, without some sort of television input? I don't know, and we won't know. And it's obviously the UK is a very rare situation where that sort of thing is difficult. But for me, that raises up another question of, I'd also have to spend an extra 100 and however much it is a year to get hold of a TV license if I was to go and get myself an Xbox One. So there was TV, lots of TV. Steven Spielberg's doing something with the Halo series, whereby he's going to do a Halo TV series. Interesting move. It
was actually at that point when they announced the thing about the Halo TV series, it struck me that this wasn't necessarily almost like an Xbox reveal. It was almost like the next step for Microsoft, and Microsoft moving on from just being kind of Windows and the Xbox console, because now you get to the point where they're making hardware, they're making consoles, they're making computers, they're making operating systems, they're making games, then they're making TV shows, they're working with interactive TV as well. This is quite a large thing. I mean, you look at with Netflix are now creating their own original content. This is something that Xbox is getting into as well. So that seems like really strange because they are moving to a wider to a wider scope of media that they could be looking at, rather than just focusing in on games or creating a portal for other media to come into. They're creating their own stuff across the board now, which is, I find, quite interesting, quite strange.
It's certainly an interesting play. I guess what we'll also do is we'll move on to the really big topic, because we just wanted to give some instant feedback on this, and that's the games that they unveiled. All of those games that they unveiled.
Wow, are we going to have enough time? Because I'm not sure we do. Because there were quite a few.
Quite a few is literally the right word.
I counted 2.
Yeah. So they're doing a deal with NFL. Unfortunately, my connection kind of spluttered a bit when they were talking about the NFL. So what are they? Did you figure out what they were doing with the NFL?
Well, it's difficult because obviously it's not going to be any kind of service that's going to be offered over here.
Sure.
So I also lost a little bit of a will to care as that bit came on.
Okay.
Because I mean, it is they've developed a kind of a service with the NFL, and as they kind of really showed with ESPN, they do already have a service with ESPN where they're showing a lot of sport, and again that filters into the TV aspect. But with the NFL, they are trying to enhance the way they can show the sport through the Xbox, and they're showing through looking at people involved in the sport, involved in the league, and trying to get in at that level and trying to build something. And as I said before with the TV shows, this is not an Xbox or Microsoft area. This is something completely new that they're going into. And so it'd be interesting to see where that goes. I mean, obviously for us over here, I can only speak for what we're going to get. We're not going to get something like that. Whether or not they can find some way of having a similar thing with, I don't know, the Football Premier League, which was probably the equivalent over here, because obviously there are a number of sports over here, but in terms of popularity, that's at the level of where the NFL is in the States.
Yeah. So I mean, okay, so that's put my mind to ease. Okay, I thought that was potentially going to be a game, but okay, we'll move on to the actual games. Forza.
Well, we saw some pretty videos. We didn't actually see any games.
Well,
we saw some pretty videos, which, don't get me wrong, pretty much most of the PS4 launch as well was the same. And I don't know how much you can tell from a pre-rendered video.
So what did they show?
They showed Forza, which was some flashy cars driving around with some commentators.
Good.
They showed Quantum Break, I think it is.
That was the little girl who was very bad at sailing.
I actually watched it thinking, I have no idea what this is about. It starts off with a film, live action thing of a woman speaking to a young girl who then puts her hand on the side of her head. Suddenly, a large ship is smashing into a bridge and lots of glass is breaking. And then some people are in a church, and then it goes back to the little girl in a car. And I have no idea what that was.
This is from your friends and mine, the people behind Alan Wake, of course. Remedy. So that's an interesting one. What else was there?
There was a slight thing with EA. Basically, where they said this wasn't necessarily exclusive to Xbox, but they did announce that they've developed a new in-game engine, which is called EA Sports Ignite, and that will be used for FIFA, Madden, NBA, and UFC games within the next year. So all the new games coming in will use this new engine. They didn't go too far into that, other than showing again some videos, which again you can only see a certain much. But that's kind of where that came in. The only other game we saw was right at the end. And it was their big tentpole announcement, which was the reveal of Call of Duty Ghosts, which had been mentioned before. That was kind of quite known before the launch.
We knew that was coming. Yeah. We knew that was coming.
We
didn't know what it looked like.
No.
So Call of Duty Ghosts, they were talking about how people expected Activision to play it safe this year and go and release Modern Warfare 4. And I'm 100% confident people did think that that was going to happen, because the information that was coming out about Ghosts was that it was a brand new engine. The team was Infinity Ward, which, for all intents and purposes, due to the shuffling of and the sort of controversy that surrounded Infinity Ward a few years ago, it's essentially a very new team as well, and it's a brand new system. So for me, I never really thought that they would go and do, they would potentially poison the Modern Warfare or the Black Ops brand. I thought that they would go off and do a new one, because potentially they could be launching, they've got the Call of Duty name, but they wouldn't be poisoning that Modern Warfare brand if it all went wrong. Ghosts, for me, it looks like a Call of Duty game. It looks very good. Very high res. They were talking about, one of the things that my partner was particularly impressed by was interactive fog, interactive mist, interactive smoke. Basically, if you walk through a cloud of smoke, it will curve around your body, realistically. And I thought that was really interesting. But there were also a few puff features, things that sound new but aren't. Like, for example, that the AI was so sophisticated that when you were swimming, the fish would get out of your way. And I thought to myself, well, MGS3 did that on the PS2. There was little.
I've never played a game where I've thought, well, those fish clearly aren't moving.
Yeah, exactly. There were bits and pieces like that I kind of thought, it would be better if you just kind of focused on the tech side of stuff, the stuff that is genuinely new. But it was a very not moving, but a very action-focused trailer. Lots of scenes of water, like busting through a dam, lots of gunfire, people stabbing people in the face. Call of Duty.
There was I would probably argue the Milo moment of this launch, which would be in this reveal for Call of Duty Ghosts, which is where they attached a motion capture suit to an Alsatian dog. And I think that made me smile.
That's good.
And I just want to be the dog now. That's all I want.
Oh, well, don't
if I can be the dog, I will buy that game. Dang it, I will pre-order it. And I don't pre-order. If I can be that dog, I will do that.
Now, that dog looks amazing, and already there are GIFs online of people saying this is the best moment. Here's a video of a dog's mouth being animated. It was very cool. The fact that there's this. They were showing off the differences between Modern Warfare 3 tech and their new engine for Ghosts, and they showed a picture of one of the dogs in Modern Warfare 3, and I initially thought, my initial reaction was, oh, that looks really rubbish for next generation. And then it was a comparison, basically. It was a comparison video, and they showed this new one, and it looks amazing. It genuinely does add a whole new layer to dog technology. But joking aside,
we've been crying out for it.
Joking aside, it looks great. Like that game, top work. Like there's they were sort of just showing things like the arms, for example, that hold the guns. You can see the individual hairs on the arms, and it's not a texture, it's nothing silly like that. It's individually mapped hairs and cuts and bruises and stuff like that. And that, I think, will add an additional layer of immersion for games that will allow you to become immersed. Whether or not that tech is actually useful for a Call of Duty game where it's quite fantastical and over the top, I don't know. But that's that's kind of where we're at with Call of Duty.
Although it didn't actually tell us really anything about what Ghosts means.
Well, supposedly Ghosts is a group of ex-special forces. Basically, the American military is in disarray, apparently. The Ghosts are made up of ex-high-end special forces, and they're going to do something. So I think it's a sort of, the president is in danger, 90s action movie situation.
Now, I haven't played, the last Call of Duty I played was actually, I think, Modern Warfare 2. How is that different to Black Ops?
Yeah. That's right.
I just kind of hit the nail on the head there with that one.
I think you might have. The other thing is, it's not an exclusive like I originally thought it might be. It's not a straight out exclusive. It's the DLC will be timed exclusive. I'm not 100% sure on the actual release of the product itself. And yeah, so you, if you want extra map packs, then if you're going to play it on PS4, you might have to wait a little bit. If you get yourself an Xbox One, you'll get them on, day one. You'll get them instantly. The sort of tangentially related to games and tech at the same time, coming away from that, because that is basically the list of games that was announced. Very small numbers. Oh, I should also say Ubisoft sent me an email saying that Watch Dogs and Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag is also confirmed for Xbox One, which
would be surprising if it wasn't.
Yes.
Considering it's on everything else already.
Yes. We are going to see a lot of cross-gen games. Apparently that's the new term, Dan. Cross-gen.
Cross-gen. Okay.
For about 6 to 12 months, what you'll probably see is a bunch of games doing a gun, which is, there'll be a version on the console you already own, and there'll be a version on the next console that you want to buy. And
that's fine for me, because anybody who's not very rich won't necessarily be able to get one or both of these consoles necessarily straight away. So for me, it's going to take me a bit of a while. I get married next year. I can't really persuade my wife to be that I should be able to buy these consoles, so I have to wait.
I mean, if you're not Scrooge McDuck, you won't be getting a PS4 and an Xbox One at the same time. Again, no price has been announced as far as I've seen. Certainly nothing that I've seen kicking about. And that's the same for the PS4 as well, of course. And we also don't know when either of the consoles will be released. We do know that the sort of grey area of later this year, so you can expect Q4 just in time. But also,
it did say around the world. And in the past, you've had kind of around Christmas in America, and then it's come out around March in Europe. But it did say around the world later this year.
Yes,
that would imply before Christmas it'll be everywhere.
Worldwide launch. Yeah. So that will be something. That'll be very interesting to see what happens with all of that. The only other thing I would say is so there's no backwards compatibility, not for any single game product. Now, this is the same for the PS4. So your PS4 digital library won't be coming over directly. There was sort of hinting that Gaikai Tech would, stream your purchases to you instead, which interesting play. Maybe that will happen. Maybe that won't. That hasn't been confirmed. But the Xbox One definitely isn't backwards compatible. So your entire library of XBLA games, nope. That's not coming through to Xbox One. Again, Microsoft's been investing heavily in streaming technology recently, so that might be a workaround. But as for now, there is nothing for either console, set in stone. The other thing, and this is the really important one, aside from needing an internet connection, not an always-on internet connection, but it will need an internet connection to sort of set itself up occasionally, and developers will be able to determine whether or not they require your console to be connected 24/7 whilst playing. That's down to the developers. Aside from
that could be something similar to something like MAG that was on PS3 that you had to be connected. Because obviously it's just a purely multiplayer game.
Yes.
Theoretically, you had to be connected.
Yeah, I mean, a better example would be there was Final Fight, I think it was Double Impact, which was a game from Capcom on PS3 and 360. And basically, if you wanted to play it at all, and this included, quote unquote, offline, sort of a single player thing, you needed to be connected to PSN or to Xbox Live. And that is an example of it. So it's not a brand new thing by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a thing. But the other thing I was going to say is if you go into a second-hand store and you buy an Xbox One game on a disc, because you still can do that, they're not going to completely cut out retail. If you buy it second-hand and you put it into your machine, first of all, you need to install it. Every game must be installed. And Microsoft will charge you a fee for that second install. Basically, the game will be able to tell whether or not it's already been used in another system. And if it has been, then it won't work on yours without you paying an additional fee. So it's a little bit like an online pass for an EA Sports game. Whereas with EA, it's just online features that you won't be able to get hold of. This will be the entire game. You will go and buy a game secondhand, and it won't work unless you give Microsoft some extra money. So that is also one thing to keep in mind.
I mean, that's interesting. I mean, I hadn't actually heard that, and it'd be interesting to see whether or not it is just a flat fee of, say, if you say £5-10 across the board. If it's in any way pre-owned, so if it's been used by someone else, you just pay that much and you just get the full game. It would be a way of getting around the kind of the piracy, not so much piracy, like kind of the trade-in culture.
Sure.
That enables them to recoup some of that money, which I can completely understand them
Absolutely.
wanting to do that.
Yes.
You can't deny that they are losing money as a result of this. However, it might work better than what I think a lot of people were worried about, in the fact that you just physically, it was a one-time thing, and it's not going to cut out the trading market, but it's just going to line a bit more of Microsoft pockets as a result.
Yeah, it feels. I don't know how I feel about it.
It feels a bit like a compromise. That, okay, we understand you want to do this, but you've got to accept that you need to do a little thing for us as well.
There was a really interesting tweet by a fellow writer called Sam Ahmed, and he basically said, this feels like a compromise, and that's not necessarily a good thing. It feels like Microsoft don't understand why there's a second-hand market, and they're putting something in that is sort of anti-consumer, rather than do something proactive about it. And I think my interpretation of what Sam was talking about was basically, instead of going through retail, what they could have done is rip the optical disc out of it and just said, right, no, all games, you must buy them first hand, but we're only going to charge you 20 quid a game. That would be a very proactive, very pro-consumer way of doing stuff, and it would cut out second-hand sales completely, and it would cut out retail, which is something that all of these companies essentially want to do that aren't Activision and very, very large companies. But instead, they've kind of created this thing that is rather consumer aggressive, and that's not great. That's not a brilliant move for them. I think how far are we into this recording? We're a fair few minutes into this recording. We just wanted to get Dan and I just wanted to get sort of thoughts out there. We'll return you to your regular scheduled programming this coming Friday. But final thoughts, Dan. Will you be getting one?
At the moment, I can't say whether or not I'd be getting either of the two main consoles, and the reason is I don't feel like I've seen the full package of either. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like I've seen the full package of the Xbox, because I don't feel like it showed me what it can do on a gaming front.
Yep.
And I don't think I've seen the full impact of the PS4, because I don't see what that's done on an entertainment hub front. Because I know a lot of people, they just want these, just play games. I'm not like that. My use of a console is about 50-50 between gaming and using it as an entertainment hub. I'm using Netflix or Sky Player and bits and pieces like that. That's what I use my consoles for. So that part is important to me. And that's why the Xbox side does interest me, because of they put so much into creating an entertainment hub. And I just haven't seen that with PlayStation. I know it will be there, but I don't know in what format. So it's very difficult at the moment. The one thing I would say on the gaming side for Xbox is they have said that that there are 15 exclusives coming out for Xbox One. Of those, 8 are brand new franchises. Whether or not 7 of those are Kinect-based dance games, I don't know.
Yep.
But there are 8. The fact that there are 8 exclusive franchises, one is exciting.
Yep.
But on the other side of it, if they were great franchises, they probably would have shown them at least one of them off today.
This is
true. In my view.
Yeah, this is true. For me, coming away from this event, I'm really disappointed with what they showed. I think they spent way too much time with television. I think they needed to front load that Call of Duty Ghosts trailer and go, bam, this is how good this system looks. This is a top quality game that you want to play, and you're going to play it, you're going to play, some of its content earlier with us. I think they needed to lead with that. And I'm like you, actually. Yes, absolutely. It was a bit of a sort of trick question for you, because I feel exactly the same. I think that we're going to see even more from both of the consoles at E3. I think we're going to see the games, because that's the place for it. This was very much a we want to talk to everybody presentation, and depending on the games that come out that are shown at Microsoft's press conference in Los Angeles in not very long, like literally a couple of weeks now.
It's at the end of it did come up with a time. I think I caught it as 19 days or something.
Yeah, it's under 20 days. It's a few weeks away, and I'm really interested to see what both of them have, because at the moment, my sort of gut reaction is to kind of side a little bit more with the PlayStation side of things. But at the same time, the thing that's kind of pushing me away from that is I haven't seen a game. We didn't see a game there that I kind of looked at and went, yeah, really excited for that. There's a lot of criticism on the internet today about how few games there were, and I'm part of it, and I'm happy to say I'm kind of part of that. But at the same time, there were also very few really truly interesting games that were shown at PlayStation at the PlayStation 4 reveal, and I do think that we're going to have to wait and see at Los Angeles and see what's coming out until I make my purchasing decision.
We won't know until. I mean, it's always the case. You don't know something like this until E3. I mean, the difference is now it's very clear that where they've drawn their battle lines, and both of them are missing key aspects of their sales pitch, which you can't really determine either of them until you've heard everything they've got to say, and we've only heard half of what they have to say.
Yeah.
So it'd be unfair to decide one way to be able to say one way or another, because as we said at the start, on paper the machines, they're basically the same. They look the same. They've got the same stuff in them. Everything is the same. You haven't got with PS4 like you did with PS3 the advantage of the Blu-ray, because now the Xbox will have the Blu-ray. They're both on that side, so there's really nothing to pick between them on that front. It's just what are they putting inside of it on a software level.
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing. And we haven't seen everything that they've got on the table for that yet.
Absolutely. And I think we'll call it there. Guys, if you like this little bit of rambly stuff, let us know. You can email 0@inretrospectpodcast.com if you like. XERO, obviously, is the stupid spelling of my name. Twitter.com/InRetroSpect is the gremlin, and if you're following him, you would have caught his incredible live blog of the Xbox One reveal today. Rather naughty, a couple of rather naughty tweets, but I quite liked it. And
you like things naughty, don't you, Pete?
Absolutely. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search for InRetrospect Podcast, and make sure, of course, that you come to InRetrospectPodcast.com to check out the regularly scheduled programming, which we will return to this Friday. All right. And you and me have got a show to record now, so let's start faffing about with this, and we'll do another one, shall we?
Yeah.